What's going on, guys? This is James Allen. I am recording this on Friday, July 18th, 2025. Yesterday, I was on a computer doing some work, and I get a text from an old friend back in San Francisco. I've mentioned to you guys that I lived in the Mission area of San Francisco, right across a bar named Zygus on 15th and Valencia. So that was my turf. And I get a friend from there texting me yesterday out of nowhere, and he's like, do you have some time to talk? We can't talk over text. It needs to be over the phone. So I'm like, all right, give me 15 minutes. So I stop what I'm doing. I believe I was working on Cityscape. And I, give him a call. And this is what he tells me. I am completely baffled at the whole situation, and I have to share it with you guys. And I want to be clear here before I get into the story. That is, one, I am telling you guys 100% the truth. And two, I did not orchestrate this. I did not, set this up to try to expose Dfinity. I did not orchestrate this whatsoever. This came to me, and I'm telling you 100% the truth. So here is the story. He tells me he's an engineer in San Francisco, right? So he's a typical Silicon Valley engineer. And his circle tells him about Caffeine AI. He finds out about Caffeine AI somehow, some way through his circle, right? People in tech talk about tech. And he goes and look up, Caffeine AI because, he's interested in going into Hackathon. So he looks up Caffeine AI and then he lands on one of my videos. Now, when he sees this, he's like, oh, this is James. He's pleasantly surprised. And unfortunately, he notices that I'm kind of dissing Caffeine AI in a way. I'm saying this is not going to pop. This is not going to work. And he's kind of like baffled at the whole thing because his circle is telling him great things about it. And he sees me saying, this ain't going to pop, right? And he literally tells me on the phone that, when he saw my video saying Caffeine AI isn't going to pop, he was shocked because I am one of the most thoughtful person he knows to this day. This is something he literally told me. I'm not making this up. He's like, James, you're one of the most thoughtful person I know to this day. So when I saw your video on Caffeine AI saying this ain't going to pop, now I had to go to the hackathon, right? so he's kind of like, I have to go and see what's going on here because I know James personally, and this is not adding up. So he ends up going to the hackathon, kind of like being a scout, kind of cool. That's why I'm wearing the scout t-shirt today, right? So he goes and, serve as a scout to see, okay, what's going on? Is this real or is this like, what's going on, right? And we spent about an hour talking over the phone where he tells me what he sees. So I write down a list of the points he made because this is not my own observation, right? So I don't have them at the top of my head. And I want to be accurate in my description because it is not my goal to antagonize Dfinity, to expose Dfinity, or I don't want Dfinity to fail, right? I have to be clear here. My job is to just show you guys a testimony from someone who actually went there, an actual engineer who went to the hackathon, and, this is what he had to say. So this is the list I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and read it for you. So the first thing he said is that he was shocked, absolutely shocked with how tight security was. He couldn't believe how tight security was. The bouncers were huge, according to him, very tight. They searched his bag. He felt very violated. He said he was really just shocked, and he felt that security was tight like that because they were trying to guard optics, right? They were trying to protect optics. They were trying to control the situation as much as possible. In fact, I asked him, is this the tightest security you've seen in all the Silicon Valley events you've been to? He's like, this is the tightest security I've seen in any event. Forget like tech events, right? And him and I have been to many tech events together. He's like, forget, tech events. This is the tightest security I've seen in all events, period. And just to make this clear, he is not a black man, right? I know there are like cultural stereotype and cultural biases. Some of you might think, okay, black men are usually suspicious of authority and stuff like that. He's not a black guy, right? So I just want to get that out the way, that this is not a bias that he might potentially have. He felt security was very strong, that they were trying to guard optics for whatever reason. All right, now we get into the Caffeine AI. He tells me Caffeine AI kept glitching. It kept glitching and crashing. That's something he's mentioned to me numerous times, that not only he experienced, but many other people at the hackathon experienced. And he described some of these glitches. One of the glitches that occurs is he would write a prompt. Actually, the first glitches he mentioned is the preview kept faulting. But the second glitch he mentioned is like he would write a prompt for Caffeine AI to generate, and the app would tell him, I cannot generate this due to security reasons. And he said he would talk to people at Dfinity about it, and they would say, well, it's because your prompt is too long. But then he would talk to other people that's part of the Dfinity staff, and they would say, no, the prompt could be as long as possible. So there seems to be situations where Caffeine AI cannot generate certain things. So instead of saying I cannot generate this or that, it says like, oh, there's security issues. And he also mentioned Caffeine AI just flat out crashed a couple of times. It's not something he personally just experienced. Many other people in that hackathon also experienced the glitches and crashes at Caffeine AI. All right, his next point was that when it came to like the award, like the winners, he felt the winners were pre-selected. Now, I know my friend that went there, he's very intuitive. He's not just like an engineer. He's very intuitive. So when he says something like that the winners were pre-selected, I do not take it for granted. And here is the first reason why he felt the winners were pre-selected. He said the first winner, what that person, I believe it was a woman, he said what that woman presented as the final product, he said there's no way she could have used Caffeine AI to do that. He was like, there's no way Caffeine AI was used for this particular output, because he's worked with libraries to produce stuff like that. I believe it was like an animation, like a bottle animation. It was something that's related to animation. And he said there was no way she used Caffeine AI to do this product. And he said the second person who won wasn't even there. The person wasn't even there. They were like calling them over and over at least 20 times. And, the person finally showed up way late. They were parking, showed up. He's like, there was something felt weird about the winners. The first winner, there's no way she built Caffeine AI. She used Caffeine AI to build that product. And the second winner wasn't even there. So he felt like the winners were pre-selected. All right, this is where it gets really interesting because, according to him, Dominique Williams was there as well. And he said he had the time to engage numerous people at Dfinity. And he said he felt like Dominique behaved like a celebrity. That's an interesting observation, right? He said he felt like Dominique did not move like a founder, engineer, operator. He said Dominique really behaved like a celebrity. There's this entourage constantly around him. He's signing autographs. He's making like speeches. But he's like, at no point did he felt like he was talking to another founder engineer, right? And that's important because he is a founder and engineer himself. And he felt like Dominique behaved more like a cult celebrity than an actual founder, engineer, operator. Again, this is not my observation. Make of it what you will. This is perhaps one of the most critical points in what he told me. He said to him, as an engineer, Caffeine AI is useless. He's like, to me, Caffeine AI is useless to me as an engineer. The first reason is because he had asked the people at Dfinity, how can I use this to monetize my product as a developer? And they didn't really have an answer for that. And as you can imagine, if you're a software engineer, you're not just building apps for free, right? You want to monetize your apps. And he had asked numerous people at Dfinity, how can he use Caffeine AI to monetize his products? And that's not something they thought about for some reason. That wasn't important. That wasn't something they thought about. So there was not really an answer. And he also said, compared to other AI models out there that could help you build an application, because there's numerous assistive AI out there, or ChatGPT being one of them out of the top of my head. But there's many others which I don't really recall too much. He said, Caffeine AI does not beat these generative AIs that could assist you in building tech products. He's like, to him, it's useless because he can't monetize what he builds using Caffeine AI. And two, if he wants an assistive AI to build tech products, there's better products out there already existing in a marketplace. So he's like, to me, Caffeine AI is useless to me as an engineer. Now, this is his final note. He said the whole thing was fishy. He's like, to him, the whole thing was fishy. The whole thing was fishy. How tight security was, how they searched through your bags, how they kept eyes on you the whole time, how the whole thing felt like a celebrity worship rather than like a founder experimenting with technology, how Caffeine AI kept glitching and crashing and telling you that it couldn't generate prompts because of security issues, how there was no monetization path. Most of the engineers at the hackathon were foreign. There weren't many local Silicon Valley engineers, but he did say some of the engineers he met were talented for sure, especially those that's part of Definity. How big the bouncers were. There were many things that simply threw him off and felt like the whole thing was fishy, and he left in time. However, one of the things he told me was because we spent a long time talking, and one of the things that was important to him was his anonymity. He spoke to a lot of the staff at Definity, and there was a lot of things he shared with me that I cannot share because he said if I were to share it publicly, it would give up his identity because he currently still has a relationship with some of these people at Definity. So I had asked him, I said, so if you're telling me not to share these things because you don't want your identity or your cover blown, then you think Definity is watching me. And you know what was his answer? He said, James, given how they were watching everyone at that hackathon, including myself, they're definitely watching you, right? So that was his report. That was his testimony. I didn't warp what he said, and I'm going to go over it one more time. Security was too tight. They were trying to manage optics. Clearly, they were trying to manage optics. Security was way too tight, the tightest he's ever seen. Caffeine AI glitch and crash a lot, right? Glitch and crash a lot. Winners were pre-selected. Dominique behaved more like a celebrity, not like a founder or operator. Caffeine AI is useless to him as an engineer because there's no monetization path and there's better assistive AI products out there. And the whole thing smelled fishy. So that's his summary. And I want to say before I terminate this episode that I think the universe is trying to make a point here. I really do, guys, because I haven't spoken to that friend in years. The last thing I expected was to hear from him to go to the Caffeine AI hackathon. That's the last thing. I did not orchestrate this. This is the universe trying to make a point here, is what I'm trying to say. This is the universe trying to make a point here. What that point is, I will leave it up to you. In any case, my misfits, that's all I have for you in this episode. You know what to do. Don't forget to press that like button and support me on Patreon. I will see you next time.